Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. So I want to continue my discussion. I want to go even more deeply into what we were talking about yesterday. And this is really probably a more accurate title, which is 3D religion versus 5D spirituality. Why we won't need religion after 5D ascension. And in the title, I actually said why we won't need God after 5D ascension. So I'd like for you to check in with yourself and ask yourself, how do you feel when I say that? That after 5D ascension, there will be no more need for God. God won't exist, at least not in the way that it is talked about. I mentioned something in the video yesterday, and I'll expand on it. I'm confused. I shouldn't say confused, but I find it a confusing thing to do for religious teachers who are not Abrahamic religion followers, meaning they're not from Jewish, Christian, or Islamic religions. Why, for perhaps Hindu teachers, Buddhist teachers will use the word God? You know, I was talking yesterday about a video I saw from very well-known spiritual teacher who, by the way, I don't really have a problem with. I didn't mention his name because I'm not trying to badmouth him. I was trying to point out the language that he was using was destructive. It was clever and cute, and he went on later in the video to sort of explain a little better. But again, I think that his explanation wasn't very good. It wasn't very clear. And I think it did more to create a codependent response in his followers than I believe what he might have intended. And so I thought it was important to point that out. And because of that, that's why one of the reasons I think he's popular is because of that. Because oftentimes he'll say things that he doesn't really explain what he's saying, and it sounds good, and it stimulates people's codependence in a religious way, and so I think that needs to change. But, you know, I've got nothing against the guy himself, and from what I can tell, he seems to have a lot of integrity and does a lot of good things. And I think if somebody went and trained with him in his meditative practice, would probably be a very beneficial experience. But I think we need to go deeper. We need to become more mature. We need to get out of the need to follow people, worship people. And so that was, you know, what that was really all about for me. So I want to ask you, how does it make you feel? Maybe intellectually you're on board with me, but how does it make you feel emotionally when I say that after ascension we will not need God? There will be no place for God in religion. And by God, of course, I mean the Abrahamic God. The thing that confused me, I'm so bad at this. I always start talking about something and then I never finish it. But the thing that I was confused about it was that he said that if you, I won't repeat the phrase, which I think was an inaccurate, poorly chosen phrase, if you blah, 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 then you will be an instrument of God. And that language is very clear. And so we're going to get back to the word instrumentalized. And I think to be an instrument of God is an extremely self-destructive concept. and has no place in spirituality. And the reason why it is so attractive to many people, including myself many years ago, I wanted to be an instrument of God more than anything else. The idea of being an instrument of God is actually an extremely destructive thought process to your spiritual evolution. So we'll get into that. So, back to the title here, 3D religion versus 5D spirituality. Why we won't need religion after 5D ascension. If you're new to the channel, before you do anything else, even if I've upset you with what I've just said, please go to the playlists, and there's 3 playlists I want you to look at. It won't cost you a dime. Go to the Qigong folder and click on Awakening the Immortals. There are other perfectly good practices in there, but do that practice, Awakening the Immortals, so that you can tap into the kinds of energy that we're going to be talking about later in this video. Second thing I want you to do is go to the 12 steps to 5D. Do those. Don't just watch the videos. Do what I show you how to do. These are action steps that won't cost you a thing, but it will completely shift your ability out of the slave mindset, which we're going to refer to as codependence. It's going to shift you out of your codependence. By the way, everybody in the third dimension is codependent to some degree, because if you weren't, you would no longer be in 3D. The moment you completely cure yourself of all codependence, you will shift out of 3D. So we're going to take a look at the codependent mindsets that religion uses to keep you in 3D. The third playlist I want you to look at is the guided meditations, interdimensional meditations, guided interdimensional meditations. So go check those out. And yeah, do those every day. Do something from one of those folders every day, one of those playlists, sorry, every day. And if you do that, I guarantee you things will begin to shift for you very powerfully. When you have felt the energy of these practices, specifically the energy practices, and you know that you want more of this, I want you to go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. All you have to do is literally press play on the videos that you'll have access to. Just do what I'm doing. When you do those practices, questions will come up, and then you can come on to this channel during the live stream and ask me questions. I much prefer that you ask questions if you're doing the practices. If you're not doing the practices, very likely I will be annoyed by your question, because I'll be able to know that you haven't done the work. So I'm really about doing the work. And, you know, to be clear, we're going to, in 5D, we're going to take religion out of our heads. Religion will no longer be about a concept that we understand, which is Western religion has done that. You're supposed to believe in Jesus, which is an intellectual act. It's got nothing to do with anything else. And so people really believe that what they think and what the topics they focus on, they think that that changes them, and it doesn't. What changes you is when your frequency changes, because the third dimension is a frequency. The fifth dimension is also a frequency. The fastest way to change your frequency is by taking specific actions, meaning the energy practices that we're doing, as well as other things. My phone is bothering me. I have to go check it. Forgive me. Okay, that's what I thought. I'm kind of expecting an important text, but it wasn't. It was just some automated nonsense. All right. So let's get right into it. We've got 2 lists. Keeps me on topic when I have my lists here. So we're going to look at the list for 3D codependent religion and the 5D individuated spirituality. So codependence, once again, let me give you the definition of codependence. It's not what you think. Vast majority, even therapists, if you ask them what is the definition of codependence, they will say codependence is when you're too clingy and you depend on other people, blah, blah, blah. And that's not what codependence is. That's only one symptom of it. Codependence is when you get your value, your lovability, your self-worth, your confidence, your relevance to the world and to the universe, when you get those things from what you do rather than who you are, or from something outside of you, or from something superficial like the way you look. Most codependence is most easily identified by people who are people pleasers. That's why most of the time when you ask somebody what does codependence mean, they'll basically define a people pleaser. But people pleasing is only one symptom of codependence. But it's a very good one because it's very clear that people get their value, their lovability, their feeling of worth because of what they're doing for other people. And so people pleasers, as I've said many times, the story of whatever her name is, we'll call her Gertrude. Gertrude gets her value at the PTA meeting when she shows up with cookies every week, and she does it so that people will notice her and will like her and they'll want to be friends with her. And when they don't, she gets extremely hurt. And she ends up saying things like, I do everything for everybody and nobody does anything for me. Or she says things like, I don't ask for much, but when I do, so she's not doing anything out of a true desire to give. She's doing it so that she can get something, but she doesn't have the bravery to ask, hi, I like you. Can I have your phone number? I'd like to hang out with you, and take the risk of being rejected. Instead, she tries to make herself something that everybody needs. She tries to make herself indispensable, which is a form of control. It's a form of abuse. She wants people to be so addicted to her cookies that they need her for what she does for them. She gives them cookies, and then when they go, oh my God, these cookies are great, thank you, Gertrude, then she feels valuable, she feels loved. And that's because she was taught as a child that her value came from what she did for other people. Or, in order to avoid being abused, she learned that if she got ahead of people's anger and did things for them, that would offset their anger, and then she would feel loved. And of course, none of those things has anything to do with being loved. But that is codependence. She gets her value from what she does, not who she is. Celebrities get their value from their celebrity. This is why, I want to use names, but I won't. But you can find plenty of examples of this. There's a musician, a pop artist musician from when I was a kid. She's the same age as me. Maybe she's a little older than I am, and I'm 60. And she looks horrible. She looks like a bloated, swollen pumpkin. And it's because she's 60-something years old, and she has been to many doctors who have tried to change her face and make her look like she's 25 or 30 again, and she doesn't, and she never will. And people make fun of the way she looks. And it's very sad. And the sad part isn't just that she's made fun of. The sad part is that her value, she has no way to gain value to herself anymore, because her value was based not just on whatever talent she might have had. Her value was based on how she looked, her sexuality, her attractiveness. And so that's codependent. People who get their value from being rich, and the power that money brings, the influence that money brings. You know, I mean, it's the other way around. You could have rich men who have trophy wives, but they wouldn't be with those guys if those guys didn't have a lot of money. So they're just there for the money that they have. So codependence is when you get your value based on anything outside of your light being soul nature. Got that? So 3D codependent religion. Number one, you are inferior, broken, and need fixing. This is such a base assumption. This is so deeply embedded in the human psyche and so deeply embedded in our culture, even in religion, within that great spiritual body of knowledge. The assumption is, for many people, is that they are inferior, broken, and need fixing. Inferior meaning, why would you worship God unless God is superior to you? I am saying such blasphemous things here. I'm telling you that you are superior to God, whatever that is. I'm here to tell you, you are superior to God. That is outright blasphemy. If I were to say that during the Middle Ages, they would have stuck me on a pike and peeled my skin off. That's not a joke. They literally would have done that if I had said that publicly, especially if I had written it. You are superior to God. So that first assumption that you are inferior, God created you. Again, that same guy that I was complaining about yesterday, I was watching him again, because I really wanted to double check myself, because I don't like mouthing anybody, which is why I didn't mention him, but he's so popular, and I'm bothered by people, people going after superficial, incomplete, ultimately destructive messages. It bothers me. And he, I got off topic. What was he saying? He was talking. He was trying to make some point talking, being interviewed by somebody, and he said, did you create the world? And the person says, no, I didn't. He says, no, there was a creator who created you. And I'm like, this guy's supposed to know better, because that's not true. I know it's blasphemous. Nobody created you. Nobody created you. And I'll go even further than that. This world you live in, there's a creator that created this world. Look at how amazing it is. And he said something like, look at an ant. Ant is so, the creator created that. No, he didn't. You did. You created everything around you. Everything you see, you created. You created it before you incarnated as a human. You took part in the creation of this earth and everything in it. And you also create reality with your mind. Every single person's physical interaction with reality is a manifestation of their projection onto the screen of the third dimension. You not only created it before the whole thing was formed, but when you're here, every nanosecond that you're here, you create this reality. It is untrue. It is an illusion. that there's a God or a creator that created this world and then dropped you in it. It's not how any of it happened. Now do you understand why I'm so passionately going up against anybody who believes that there are false beings of light that force you to incarnate so they can feed off of you? How is that possible when you're the one that created this entire universe and everything in it, including your physical body, including all the plants and the animals? You did that. How could you possibly be so inferior and so powerless that some false being of light who is lying to you, so not only are you inferior to them, but you're such an idiot you can't tell when somebody's lying to you? See what I mean? The assumption of being inferior is the deepest, most, it's totally unconscious. It has to, and this is why all those other religions are so popular, because people are told, even by well-meaning teachers, they tell you you're inferior. God created you. God put you here. You didn't do this. You just have to worship the right God. The one of the Bible isn't all that great because he's got some problems, but the true Jesus and the true God and this is the real, that's all nonsense. All of it, the whole thing. We can throw all of it out. Please do. Please do. All right, you still with me? I hope even if you're stimulated and frightened and angry and offended, I hope you're still with me, because I'm here to give you the keys to becoming the most free, the most powerful, the most blissfully happy, and most loving, kind, empowering being to others that is possible. But you have to stick with me, and you have to be willing to look at things you might not want to see in yourself. And the only things that are bad, like looking and seeing things you don't want to see, doesn't mean looking at how bad and evil you are. It means looking at how you devalue yourself in order to be accepted. We all do it. If we didn't, we wouldn't be in the third dimension. So you are inferior, broken, and need fixing, which is where the whole salvation thing comes in. And Jesus is the most obvious one. You were so screwed up. You were so, forgive them for they know not what they do, Jesus says condescendingly. You don't have any power. You can't do it. So Jesus has to do it for you. You stupid, dumb human. Yes, thank you, human. I love you. Are you okay, Father God? And as I was taught in church, God hates sin so much, meaning you, that he had to take all of his righteous anger. He wasn't powerful enough to stop himself from acting out on his anger. He was so righteously angry for you being imperfect that he had to then take all of that anger and focus it on his perfect son who had done nothing wrong. And after slaking his bloodlust against you for existing, simply because you exist, he can't tolerate you. He had to take it out on his innocent son, and then in order to be able to tolerate you, he literally takes the blood of his son that he's ritually sacrificed and smears it all over you, so that when he looks at you, he only sees the blood of his son that sacrificed himself for you. I'm not making that up. That is what they teach in church. That's what is taught in the Bible. And people still want to sanitize Christian religion. They still want to take this religion and find the true Jesus and the good Jesus. They still want to use the same phrases like Jesus died for your sins. And Jesus loves you unconditionally. Jesus sacrificed himself for you. And you have no idea how devaluing that is. Because the assumption is that there's something wrong with you simply because you exist. There's something broken and needs fixing. You need to be saved. Otherwise, you're worthless and you're going to be thrown out onto the trash heap. That's what we do with things that don't work. We throw them out. So we got to get rid of this. This only works in the third dimension, and it only works to keep you here, and it only works to make you a slave to other people, which is the whole reason it was created. So, God is outside of you. Number 2, 3D codependent religion. This is, again, an assumption people have. This is not anybody's fault because the third dimension is an illusion. The illusion of the third dimension is that everything is outside of you, but especially God. You know, and when this same guy, who, again, I can't find anything wrong with him personally. I think he's probably got some great meditative traditions, but I really would like to see somebody with that much influence go a little more deep in his teaching. The idea that you can become an instrument of God if you do the right things, if you get people to like you, literally. If you become the person that everybody likes, then you can be an instrument of God. It is so codependent, so destructive. But it feeds off of that assumption, which is that God is outside of you. So sit with yourself for a moment. Do you believe that? If you live in the third dimension, there's a good chance that you do believe that, because that's your experience, that's what you feel, but it's not accurate. And you'll know this the moment that you go beyond the third dimension, which is why it's so important to do not only the energy practices, which create a portal to higher dimensions, but doing the interdimensional meditation, which will actually connect you to higher dimensional consciousness. The first thing that you will find when you go there is that it will absolutely blow your mind to find out who you really are. By the way, many people who are having difficulty with the interdimensional meditations, I don't know, everybody's different. And, these things you can't, higher dimensional beings aren't butlers or clowns. They're not here to perform for you. So you can't guarantee what kind of experiences you'll have. But one of the reasons why many people can't have deep experiences is because they still hold on unconsciously, hold on to these beliefs. Because if you hold on to the belief that you are a three-dimensional finite being and that God is outside of you, when you connect to your true nature, it will be very, very shocking. And so if a higher dimensional being who operates from a completely different frequency and also different assumptions about reality, when they come to you and they start interacting with you and their energy is such that you start to become aware of these things, you might just shut that out unconsciously. You might just block that. Because to become aware of your true essence means the death of your third dimensional ego, means literal death. This is Odin. If you want to understand why Odin sacrificed himself to himself, the antithesis of the Jesus sacrifice. It didn't say Odin sacrificed himself to humans. Odin didn't sacrifice himself for other people. He said, I sacrificed myself to myself, meaning he died to his third dimensional awareness. It was so shocking to him that screaming he took up the truth about himself, which is the runes. The runes appeared to him, meaning the secrets of the universe, the secrets of who he was. Screaming he took them up, it says. You may have to go through something like that. I know I have. I continue to go through things like that. So this blasphemy that I'm preaching to you will destroy your third dimensional reality. And so that's why nobody wants to hear it. They want to be told that they're tiny little broken creatures and, oh, God loves me. God is looking down on me. Tell me what I should do. What's the dogma I need to follow in order to have this outside being condescend and love me? I just want to be a little child and be loved by my parents. We've got to move past that. 3, religion makes you acceptable to God. So the dogma of religion. Listen, I believe in energetic practices, and I believe, and my experience tells me, that if you do energetic practices, you will create a portal to higher dimensions, your frequency will shift, and your awareness will shift, and you will actually begin to download more and more of your true essence, which will change your behavior, it will change your actions, and it will change what you manifest in reality. But is that dogma? No. Dogma is the 10 Commandments. And let me remind you what Jehovah said to Moses. By the way, neither of them existed, of course. There's no such thing as Jehovah, unless you accept that Jehovah is the ego. I am that I am, the ego. Moses never existed. He's a made-up character. None of that happened. But if we go by that fictionalized story, Moses is looking at the burning bush, and Jehovah says, take off your shoes, for the ground that you stand on is holy. In other words, don't bring your dirt here, even though it's the dirt on your shoes that God supposedly created. He doesn't want his own dirt. Doesn't want his own dirt in his own bush. But he says, if you obey my commandments perfectly, if you obey all of my commandments perfectly, I will bless you. I will give you all of these good things. Children, riches, money, health, 7 generations, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, if you do not follow all of my commandments perfectly, I will curse you. I will give you boils. I will curse all of your children for 7 generations. You will be poor and miserable. Now, bear in mind, he didn't say, if you obey me, I'll love you. And if you consciously choose to disobey me. He didn't say that. Very perfectionistic. He said, if you follow all of my commandments perfectly, I will love you. And if you do not follow all of my commandments, meaning if you do 99% of them, but you don't do 1%, either because you chose to, or you forgot, or for whatever reason you made a mistake, he will hate you. He's clear. He says that. If you do not follow my commandments, I will hate you. And we project this onto religions. We project it onto even Hindu religions. People reject, specifically, I see that a lot in, some of the Vishnu religions, like people who follow Krishna. Krishna, they make Krishna look almost exactly like Jesus. And you really have to follow all the rules. And now, I have nothing against following the rules if the rules will give you a specific energetic result, like doing the practices I teach. If you follow the instructions on some of them, you'll have a specific energy thing that will happen to you, which will shift your frequency up. But your frequency isn't shifting up because you're valuable. Your value hasn't changed. It's just your mindset is now different, and your vibration in your body is different to allow you a different state of being. Your behavior will change automatically. You won't have to necessarily decide. I'm not saying you won't have to consciously do things differently, but you won't be doing it to be good. I mean, there are things, I don't consume alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't eat a lot of, I don't eat beef. And it has no other reason than it's not good for me. I don't like it. And so I'm not doing it to be accepted. I'm just doing it to keep the vibration of the cells of my body happy. So religion should be practical. It should be about giving you the ability to get the most out of your life. That's it. That's the only value these practices and teachings have. And every true discipline, don't get me wrong, I believe in discipline. Disciplines achieve specific results. You go to the gym and you lift weights, you get big muscles. You go and run, 10 miles a day, you change your physiology to be a better runner, and you get all the benefits of that. But to do anything because your value depends on it is codependent, and it's ultimately destructive. So God's love is conditional. We already talked about that. God will only love you in the third dimensional religion if you do what he says, if you do what he wants, which is controlling. This is what narcissists do. If you want the love of a narcissist, you have to do what they want. And if you don't, they will punish you. God's love is instrumental. So what does it mean to be instrumentalized? Instrumental, this is why I responded to this spiritual teacher who unknowingly, I don't believe he meant anything by it, but he said, if you, so codependent, if you become a person where you get the whole world to like you, then you will become an instrument of God. An instrument of God means that to instrumentalize you means that you become a thing. You become a thing. Men who treat women like sex objects, they are instrumentalizing them. They're literally treating them like objects for their own happiness. Somebody who treats a woman like a sex object means that the woman has no value except for what she can physically do to him and for him. He is instrumentalizing her. Women who use men for money are instrumentalizing them. The men become an instrument for their desire for wealth and security. Those are just two examples. So the last thing you want is to be an instrument of God, because that means you're nobody, you're nothing. You're just a thing. This is 3D religion. You have no value without God in 3D codependent religion. This is again perfectly seen in Christianity. If you, in fact, I used to be a born-again Christian, so I know the assumptions. And, there was I don't know if, I'm sure they still do it, but, when born-again Christians go around and knock on your door to convert you, they lots of times have with them this little booklet called, what was it? It just fell out of my head. The 4 Spiritual Laws, I think they call it. And the first one is that you are separate from God. That's the forgive you, is that you are separate and apart from God. Now, once you agree with that, if you agree with that assumption, then they can continue on to the rest of it. Because if you don't buy into the idea that you are separate from God, then you have no need of a savior. You have no need of a religion. Okay, my internet's telling me there's no data. So this is again this idea that you have no value without God. This is a 3D religious concept, and I'm telling you the opposite. And it's blasphemous. And if you can tolerate this blasphemy, you can awaken to your true power. Can awaken to your infinite divine nature. So I'm just going to check to make sure that my output, no, it's what it's supposed to be. Okay. All right, now let's take a look at 5D religion. So that was 3D religion. Let's look at 5D religion. I'm calling this individuated spirituality. So I told you what the definition of codependence is. Codependence is when you get your value from anything outside of you, or anything superficial about you, like the way you look. Individuation. Individuation is the goal of all therapy and all spiritual practice. Meditation. The goal, you want to know, why should I meditate? Meditation will help you to individuate. You will be able to have your own identity. You will be able to find your own value and your own worth. And I've said this before, but how human beings become individuated ideally is done in childhood. Now, not most parents aren't perfect, so not most people aren't individuated. If you grew up in a home like I did, very dysfunctional, destructive home with narcissistic abusers, then you will have a very tough time becoming individuated. But an individuated child, the way it is created, is when the infant is born, the infant is nothing but a bunch of physiological sensations and needs. The infant is completely helpless and just is filled with experiences and feelings. Nervous system, emotional, and doesn't know up from down. And so what the mother's job is, this is why, in many cultures, the baby's literally strapped to the mother 24/7. And this is a very powerful healing thing for the child, because the child is rewarded every time the child has an experience. The child is hungry. Mother feeds the child from her own breast milk. The child needs to poop. The mother changes the diapers and pats her on the back and kisses her and loves her. The child is angry and the mother comforts her. The child is happy and the mother loves her and kisses her. And no matter what the child does, the child is rewarded for having an experience. Emotional or physical, any feeling they have is acknowledged and rewarded. And that is necessary because not only does it create a connection to the child's nervous system and the brain and all that stuff, but it allows the child to understand that they have value simply because they exist. And then they begin to individuate. So as they get past the terrible twos and they become 3 and 4 and 5, they become more and more individuated. They separate their psyche more and more from their mother until finally they get to an age like, they're a teenager or a young adult. And then when they have an experience, they have an emotion or they have a physical feeling, what ends up happening, because mommy's not there to take care of them now, they self-soothe. They tell themselves, it's okay that I'm angry. It's okay that I just bumped my knee. I still love myself. I'm still valuable. What makes codependent adults such a problem is that they're trying as an adult to get other adults to treat them the way their mother didn't treat them. So this is why Gertrude gets so bent out of shape when she brings the cookies to the PTA meeting and nobody acknowledges her to the extent that she wants, which is, by the way, first and foremost impossible. Nobody could ever give her the amount of valuation that she wants because she's at the level of an infant. She wants the kind of overwhelming, fixing love that only a mother can give an infant. Once you're an adult, nobody can do that for you. And so you end up asking other people to do the impossible. And she gets very upset because she doesn't have the ability. When she gives a plate of cookies, even if she's doing it for selfish reasons, she doesn't have the ability to go, you know what, that's okay. I know who I am, and even though nobody thanked me, I feel really good that I did this for other people and it makes me happy and I love myself because I know who I am. And they mean it. When individuated people go out in the world and they fail, it doesn't destroy them. Like I'll give you two examples, again, from bodybuilding. Way back in the 70s. Everybody knows who Arnold Schwarzenegger is, but if you talk to him and you talk to him about failure, he says, I failed far more than I succeeded. He said, you have to fail in order to learn. And so, in other words, he's saying, I know who I am, and I know that I can get what I want. It doesn't matter how many times I fail. Failure's not going to stop me from getting what I want. And then there was another very famous bodybuilder, a guy named Mike Menser, who, when he didn't win the Mr. Olympia because Arnold came back and won it, he got so upset that he threw his whatever third place thing in the trash, and then he never competed again. And later in life, he got old, and I mean, he was only in his 50s. He got really out of shape, and he smoked and took drugs and, destroyed himself. And it's because he didn't have the ability to say, you know what? Yep, Arnold stole this one. I should have won, but you know what? I'm going to come back next year. I know I deserve this. I know I can do it, and I want it. I'm going to do it. He didn't have the ability to find value within himself. And that, I don't know anything about him, and just from that behavior, I already know he didn't get enough love and approval from his dad. He wasn't able to individuate. When you're at this same spiritual teacher that I'm giving a hard time about, actually somebody said to him, what do you do about people who troll against you? And he says, my identity doesn't come from what anybody says. I mean, I know who I am. So I had to acknowledge that. He's individuated. Maybe he says maybe he doesn't take things as deeply as I would like, but maybe he just doesn't know any better. But he's an individuated person. He says, people think I'm God or people hate me. It doesn't change anything about me. I don't respond to that. In other words, I'm individuated. I know who I am. That's what individuation means, and that's what the purpose of true spirituality is. So 5D spirituality, individuated spirituality, as opposed to 3D religion that says you're inferior, broken, and you need fixing. 5D spirituality says you are infinite, an infinite, multi-dimensional being of light, which is another way of saying you are God. Not only are you not broken, not only is there nothing wrong with you, you are a multi-dimensional, omnipotent being of light. Your experience in the third dimension is only what the third dimension can tolerate, which is a 3D ego-related avatar, but it's not who you are. And the whole idea of spiritual practice is to awaken to your true essence, which is God. When you become aware that you are God and you remember that, you're now enlightened. And then that's why there's no need for you to be here. And that's why we worship and spiritualize spiritual masters, like Babaji. People treat him and worship him like God. He's obviously a human being. He awakened to who he truly was. The Buddha was a human being. I mean, if you knew how human he was, you'd be shocked. He died very broken and old and sick. He died from disease. He ate meat. He was not what, the way Buddhists try and virtue signal how perfect they are sometimes. He was very human. But he awoke to his true nature, who he was. And we tend to worship these people. There's a reason why Buddhists say, if you see Buddha on the side of the road, kill him. Because once you see that object that you're trying to become, then you will stop your own practice. You will stop trying to go beyond and awaken, and you'll worship the symbol in front of you. And so at that point, then Buddha becomes a hindrance to you, and you've got to kill him. You've got to destroy it. That same guy that I was talking about yesterday, somebody in his entourage of during some kind of thing he was doing, somebody said, "I see you as Shiva. I worship you as Shiva. Am I wrong?" And then he said something cute, which was like, "I'm just the footprint of Shiva. If you follow the footprint, you'll find Shiva." It sounds good. But, you know, what frustrates me is that he didn't say, "What do you mean you're worshiping me as Shiva? You're Shiva. Why are you worshiping me?" That's what I wanted him to say. And I was disappointed in him that he didn't say that. Because again, even his cute, clever response kept that person, he was distracted away from his own infinity, because he was looking at the symbol of the teacher. And that's all teachers are. Teachers are symbols of your higher self. I mean, I've been a teacher for years. Listen, I know how human I am. I know how imperfect I am. And I do my best to not hide that. I go out of my way to tell you my story. It's again another thing this teacher doesn't do. You don't where he came from, who is he? I go out of my way to tell you my story, who I am, where I came from. When I make mistakes, you can look on my channel, you'll see no shortage of videos where I say, "I was wrong about," and I make a video where I sometimes go in 180 degrees the opposite direction because I learned something I didn't know before. I moved past something I wasn't accurate about. And that's done for a couple reasons. One is, for me personally, I can't learn from somebody if I don't relate to them. So I can't tolerate teachers that won't show their humanity, because how can I learn from you if I can't see how you overcame the problems I have? If I can't see you overcoming the same problems I have, how am I going to learn from you? I want to learn by your example how to continue to evolve. So that's the first reason I show you all of my dirty laundry, is because I want you to be able to relate to me. So you can go, "Yeah, I've done that. I've been through that. I feel that. What did he do to get past it?" And I tell you, if you want what I have, you got to do what I do. Listening to me talk is meaningless if you don't take the actions. The other reason that I show people, you know, my dirty laundry is because so many people want to. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why somebody would do this. I got to be honest with you. I don't know why. But you know, people have wanted to deify me and, you know, call me all kinds of things. And you know, I know that all I am is a symbol. And I'll accept somebody if they put that onto me, which is why, by the way, a true teacher never gets involved with their student, because a student will always project onto them, and they'll project either negativity or positivity. They'll transfer feelings for their parents onto their teachers. And a true teacher will never, ever allow that to affect the way they interact with their students, because the moment that you co-sign that, in other words, let's say, you know, if I were to get romantically involved with a student, I would be co-signing their transference onto me. And that is the worst thing I could be doing. I would be distracting them from their own process. It's incredible. That's why it's so abusive. That's why teachers can never be with their students, ever. So, you are an infinite multidimensional being of light. You are God. Nothing is outside of you. Huna teaches this. The Hawaiian shamanism teaches this. Teaches it brilliantly. Everything is inside of you. So I've shared the story many times. It's worth listening to again. Dr. Haleakala Hugh Lin, who I believe has passed away. Huna shaman. He was also a psychotherapist. And he was asked by he was asked by a Hawaiian prison to come in and work with their worst patients. They had patients in there they literally had to chain to the wall because they were so violent, biting people's ears off and things like that. It was horrible. And they said, we don't want to treat them like animals. We don't know what to do. We've heard great things about you. Can you come and work with these patients? Now, he meditated and he came to the conclusion that his soul was telling him he had some kind of karmic thing with him, but he went into it with the understanding that these weren't beings outside of him, they were part of him. And that the Huna understanding is that when you interact with anything that is unpleasant to you, even if it's wars in another country, somebody does something horrible, or you just don't like somebody, that's something within you. I'm talking about this other teacher and my problems that I have with him. I'm not unaware that I'm wrestling with my own issues about my own self as a teacher. Let me just be clear. I'm verbalizing and getting it out because I've got some things I've got to grow beyond in order to be a better teacher. So he's a part of me. He's an extension of what comes out of me. And when I can see him for who he truly is, then I will have gotten over my issues about teaching, whatever those are, yet to be determined. So he understands that. He went into it knowing that these really destructive people were aspects of himself. And so he said, after meditating and realizing that this was something that he needed to do to fix himself, he said, yes, I will take the job. And they said, great, we'll set you up with an office inside the prison. And then they said, when can you meet with these patients? And he says, oh, I'm not going to meet with them. I said, what do you mean? I mean, you're a therapist. How can you possibly help them if you don't meet with them? He said, listen, this is what I do. Take it or leave it. You want my help? This is how it's going to be. Give me an office, give me their files, but I'm never going to meet with them. And so they were desperate, and he'd been successful in other places, so they said, okay. So he went in, he'd go to work, and he'd sit in the office, and he'd pick up the first file, the guy who bites people's ears off, and he opens up the file, he looks at it, and he says, John Smith bit off the ear. And of course he has an emotional reaction to that. And he goes, oh my God, that's horrible. Biting people's ears off, oh my God. And then he went and thought about that person, meditated about that person, and then did the Huna prayer, which is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And when you ask him about it, he says, oh, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the data in my own lower self, which is his unconscious. And he says that person exists that way in my experience because that's me. I am not at one with myself. And when I can see that person as who they truly are, which is an infinite being of light, and when I get to that place and I really mean it, because I have a karmic connection with this, that person will heal. Because there's nothing outside of me. Everything is inside of me. And sure enough, he'd get through one file and he'd do that thing, and that person who was chained to the wall because he was biting people's ears off, then all of a sudden changes and then becomes so well behaved that they set him free. And he did this over and over again with numerous people. So that is a perfect way of understanding that. If you want a mantra to help you see that everything is inside of you, I can share this with you, which is Om Lam Bodharaya Nama. Om Lambodharaya Nama. Lambodhara is an aspect of Ketu. And Lambodhara means, not an aspect of Ketu, an aspect of Ganesha. Ganesha is an aspect of Ketu. But Ganesha is called Lambodhara because he has a huge belly. He has a huge belly because all of existence is inside of him. So when you chant Om Lambodharaya Nama, you are bowing to the fact that all of creation is inside of you. One of the first experiences I had in the Mao Shan tradition, which I teach here at the 90-day challenge, was I was meditating. I was doing the 3 ones meditation, those of you who've learned that. And the meditation started taking off, and I found myself floating in space, and there was this huge version of me sitting there, in meditative posture, and I was like floating outside of this huge version of me in this, in space. And I felt this being come up next to me and said, when you look up in the sky, you're not looking outside of you, you're looking inside of you. Everything is inside you. And, I didn't really understand that back then. I have a much different understanding now. I can't say I fully understand it. I'm still learning, but a very different understanding as a direct result, especially of working with the light beings who have shown me this. I see things much more differently than I did. So if you want to worship and do a mantra that will help you understand that, do that mantra, Om Lambodharaya Nama. So so you are God, nothing is outside of you. 5D individuated spirituality. Number 3, spirituality awakens you to your pre-existing divinity. I've already talked about that. Universal love for you is unconditional, as opposed to God's love being conditional. Universal love for you is unconditional. So let me explain this to you. There is literally nothing you can do, absolutely nothing you can do that will make you more lovable to the universe than you already are. There's nothing you can do to diminish the love that the universe has for you. You can do things to diminish your own self-love. You can diminish your own experience of your divinity. You can cause other people harm who in the 3rd dimension will have negative feelings for you. But there is nothing you can do, positive or negative, that will make you any more or less lovable than you are, because you're already infinitely lovable. So you can't get beyond that. The only person's love that you need to gain is your own. Which is probably what that guy meant when he said, when you can get the whole earth to like you, I think what he really meant was when you can get to the place where you like you. Because having other people like you in the 3rd dimension is kind of meaningless. Anyway, and that's one of the reasons they connect with you, is they try and tell you. You have any idea how beautiful and amazing and lovable you are. Please, let me tell you. Do you want to hear? And you have to be able to listen to that. You have to get over your ego, your Jehovah. Remember, Jehovah is the ego. And what is Jehovah? Jehovah hates you for being imperfect. Abrahamic religion is lying to you when it says that God loves you. God can't love you and simultaneously judge you for being imperfect. Can't do both at the same time. You got to pick one. So if you love somebody, it means that you have no judgments against them. If you have any judgments, you're not in a state of love. So ego is self-hatred. Even if you project it outwards. When you judge other people, all you're doing is projecting onto other people your own self-hatred. We could make the argument that I'm right now kind of struggling with this famous teacher and what he's doing wrong. It's obviously me working with my own imperfections as a teacher and projecting it onto him. See, I told you, I'm not afraid to show you my dirty laundry. I want you to see that I am just like you, and if I can do it, you can do it. If you want to have what I have, you got to do what I do. So you give value to the universe, not vice versa. Remember the quote, you can be an instrument of God? That means that God is giving you value. I was used mightily by God. Now I'm valuable. Nope. The universe does not give you value. You give value to the universe. The universe thanks you for existing because the universe is created by you. You don't remember doing it, but I guarantee you, you created this universe. You didn't do it alone. You did it with a bunch of other light beings, but I promise you, you created this world. If you are incarnated in this world, you can't incarnate as a human being if you didn't have a hand in creating this world. I firmly believe that. The only commandment is to be blissfully happy. There is a commandment that all beings, including the gods, and this is, if we want to use this is why Jehovah is not a god. Because Jehovah is miserable. I mean, how do I know that? Because he throws people into hell. He can't accept people for who they are. His own children. I mean, if a human being was to do to their children what Jehovah does to his children, we would lock them up. We do all the time. We lock them up. We put them in prison. Imagine if a human being sacrificed his good son and then took the blood and smeared it on the faces of his other children and made them feel guilty and had them worship there's just nothing wonderful about that. That is psychotic abuse. We lock those people up. So the Jehovah within you is your self-hatred, your self-devaluation, because that's all that Jehovah does. He devalues you. He instrumentalizes you. He uses you for his own ego, and he's so incompetent. He's so impotent. He's not omnipotent. He's impotent. He's so impotent that he can't even control you enough to do what he wants. And when you don't do what he wants, he's so angry he throws you into hell and then punishes you for eternity. He doesn't just kill you. He punishes you for eternity for being imperfect. And he can't tolerate that because he can't tolerate his own impotence, his own imperfection. That's why he can't see himself in any other gods. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. He even goes on to say, you shall not worship anything in the ocean or anything in the air, anything flying, anything walking. You will only worship me. Well, if he truly was, God, he would say, yeah, worship a tree. I'm in that. Yep, worship a plant. I'm in that. Worship the clouds, the sky. Worship a bear. Worship a fish. I'm in all those things. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. I'm in you too. You can worship yourself if you want. I'm everywhere. I don't have a problem. No matter where you worship, I feel it. That's what a truly omnipotent, infinite deity says. Not you shall not worship any other god. And he has all these commandments. And even the commandments are ridiculous. I mean, thou shalt not steal. That's obvious. Thou shalt not kill. That's obvious. I mean, because if you do those things, you're going to damage yourself, and it's just obvious. But when he says, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife, well, you go outside, you go to pick up the newspaper. Remember when you used to walk to the edge of your driveway and pick up your newspaper? That's how old I am. When you walk into your car to go to the store and your neighbor's wife is sunning herself and she's hot and you have a feeling, you feel attraction towards her, you can't help that. Jehovah is so intolerant, he can't even allow you to have a natural response to anything. Any feelings that you can't control. You can't have those. You got to deny those. This is a very impotent, powerless being. There's only one commandment. The only commandment that all beings must follow is to be blissfully happy. How do you do that? You listen to your soul essence. This is the book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. You can get it here at michaelwilliamdenny.com or go to Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. And in that book, I tell you that there is only one commandment. You must know what your soul wants, and you must give your soul what it wants. I want to live in a tropical paradise with warm water and crowded, empty beaches and nature, and I have that. And I have to surf as often as I can. The only reason I'm not surfing right now is because there aren't any waves. That's my commandment. If I don't do that, I am disobeying the God within me. You don't have to do anything other than what your soul truly wants. And you only have two choices in this world. The first one is what I just told you. You become aware of what your soul wants, and you give your soul the thing that gives it bliss. If you want to live in a cave in the Himalayas with a loincloth, if that's what makes you happy, go do it. You want to run a multi-billion-dollar business, if that's what gives you joy, go do it. That wouldn't work for me, but if that works for you, go right ahead. So that's the first choice. You must follow what your soul tells you to do, and the way you know your soul is telling you what to do is because your soul says, this is fun for me, this is what makes me happy, I want to go do this. And you must make that your priority. You must say, I am willing to do that thing that gives me bliss, or I'm going to die trying. You must have that commitment. That's what it really means when it says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods before you than your own blissful happiness and fulfillment. And if you don't do that, you are literally disobeying God, because your soul is God. So you're either following your soul and giving it what it wants, or you are seeking to be loved and approved of. If you want to learn how to do that, go ahead and follow this religion. Go become a Christian. Go become a Jew, a Muslim. Go become any other, crazy religion where you have to follow rules and do things to get that God to love you. Go ahead and do that. Oh, you don't want to do that? You're an atheist? Oh, no problem. Then live your life to be rich and famous. Go right ahead. That's just trying to get love and approval from other people. Oh, you don't want to do that? You're an agnostic, but you really would like to be a good person. You want to own a home and have 3.2 kids and have a car, and you want to be somebody of status, and you're going to go and get that so that everybody accepts you, and you're going to all that. By all means, go right ahead. Go live for other people's acceptance. Try and be a good person in this world so that the world will love you. The world will accept you. Those are your two choices. You're either getting love from outside of you, or you are taking the love that's within you and empowering it and fulfilling it. Those are the only two options you have. So that's 5D versus 3D. Again, 3D codependent religion says you're inferior, broken, you need fixing. God is outside of you. Religion makes you acceptable to God. God's love is conditional. God's love is instrumental. You have no value without God. 5D spirituality says you are infinite, multidimensional being of light. You are God. Nothing is outside of you. Spirituality awakens you to your pre-existing divinity. Universal love for you is unconditional. You need do nothing to be loved by all beings. You give value to the universe, not the other way around. The only commandment is to be blissfully happy. All right, so that's what this channel is all about, and all of are my commitment to do everything humanly possible to give you access to that. There's no shortage of free stuff on the channel. In fact, there's far more free things on the channel than there are stuff that you have to subscribe or pay for. So go to the playlists on the channel and do the Awakening the Immortals, the Interdimensional Meditation, the 12 Steps to 5D. Those are all free to you. It is, in my experience, it's pretty much impossible to do this thing on your own. We need to do it with other people. We're built that way. We designed the world so that it would be this way. So if you want to work with me, there's multiple ways you can do that. The first one is you can go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to any of the apprenticeship programs. You'll get access to all of the other stuff, including the lightning qigong and exiting the matrix and the shamanism mastery. You'll have access to far more stuff than you can learn in a year, and you'll be able to work with me. You can work with me anywhere from 1 to 4 times a month. It's completely up to you. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. I've got this other new thing here, which I'm getting some traction on. By the way, the person who most recently asked me a question, I haven't gotten anything back from you. I responded to you and I told you, where to go and what to do to give me your question. I still haven't heard back from you. But if you go to askmike.thunderwizard.com, you can ask me a one-off question and I'll make a video on your question. And I do that because if you have a question, probably a bunch of other people also have that same question. I might not have thought about it. So this way, everybody can be a part of it. It's a way for you to give back to other people and support the channel and give to yourself. So go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. You can ask me a question and I'll put it up and make a video about it. And the last thing is if you want to have access to all of the video packages, certifications, like I certify you in astrology, I certify you in rune readings, I certify you in being a life coach, how to teach people how to find their soul desire, and I give you access to the most powerful energy practice in history, which is the 5-element Maoshan moving forms. All of this is worth, I think, if I were to each one individually, originally you add them all up, it's going to be like $5,000. I give you all of that stuff almost for free. You can go here to 923.thunderwizard.com to have access to that. Again, all of my books, which include, if you want to understand what religion is and why Western religion is actually the most toxic, destructive thing that's ever been released on the planet, go to michaelwilliamdenny.com and get Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. If you really want to understand how these Abrahamic religions were created and how they turned into ways that governments use to control you, even to this day, get that book. All right, I've done all my business. I'm happy to take a look at all of the questions. Bear in mind, I'm going to be happier with the people who ask questions that are doing the work. So if I give you an answer you don't like, don't get mad at me. My job is to tell you the truth, not to codependently get you to like me. My goal is to try and help you, and sometimes that's to give you the bitter medicine. Oscar question. Do you think for the shift to 5D to fully solidify is for this 5D energy to be connected to the natural energy centers of the earth? Have I ever said that? That's a pretty good answer to that question. It sounds like you believe that, or you're, again, doing something I don't like. Well, let me see. Again, let's be clear about what a question is. A question is you honestly don't know the answer to something, and you really emotionally have a need to know it. So you're asking me because you think I might. I might not. But what isn't a question is to throw your opinion out in the form of a question. That's not a question, and this is sounding like that. You go on to say, for this to happen, we would need more collective consciousness that can be an anchor to 5D for allowing the world to shift fully. So that sounds like your opinion. I don't have an opinion about it one way or another, but you sound like you have an attachment to it. Again, it's not a question. That's your opinion. You're welcome to it. I don't have an opinion about that. You say, I promise I will check out these playlists, especially so Oscar, you haven't checked out the playlists? What are you doing on my channel? Your name looks familiar. I have to point this out. Listen, I could be wrong about you. I only know what I see here and what I read. But I can't stress this enough. Coming onto my channel and subscribing to my channel and listening to me talk and not doing the practices is, 98% of the value is out the window. This is why your questions are bugging me, because I can tell you're not doing the work. first few words that come out of your mouth or the first few words you write, I know whether you're doing the work or not. The point is, if you do the work, you will shift, you will change, your thinking will change. Maybe I'm wrong about you. Maybe you are doing the work. You go on to say, I promise I will check out these playlists, especially interdimensional meditations. I have an upcoming 17-hour flight, so I will download your videos and binge watch it. You're an excellent teacher. If you look at a pyramid where angels and demons are at each side, you will see your side. Right, so look, you want to go teach? Go teach. I fully support you doing that. And then you go on to teach us some more about collective consciousness of God and all of that. This is, again, why do I only take questions and honest feelings? Oscar, when you are teaching, you can't hear anything. If you come to my classroom, I want you to bring your open mind. You can leave your opinions at the door. You can pick them up on the way out. You can go on your own channel and give them to people, write them in books. That's what I do. I encourage you to do that. But you can't learn when you're speaking. You can't listen when you're speaking. You can't learn when you're telling everybody. I know it's a big feeling inside of you that's coming up. The reason why I ask people to ask honest questions, meaning I honestly don't know the answer to it, I want to know what you think, is now you're open to going beyond your limited thinking, which is the whole point of being with a teacher. A teacher, the job of a teacher isn't to tell you what you want to hear. The job of a teacher is to expand your understanding beyond its current limitations. And so you have to come and listen. It's also how these beings work. When I go into interdimensional meditation, I ask questions. I ask questions about things I don't understand, things I want to know. I would not sit at the foot of this light being and pontificate. It's a waste of their time, it's a waste of my time. So when I tell you how to function with me as the symbol of the teacher, I'm teaching you how to interact with them. Second thing I tell you to do is to talk about your feelings. People, it's amazing how uneducated people are about what feelings are. That's not your fault, that's the society we live in. A feeling is I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm excited, I'm confused, I'm afraid, I'm confident, I'm full of bliss. These are feelings. But a lot of people, like one of my favorite examples was, I was talking about Jesus in another film and how Jesus didn't exist and etc. And the person said, my feeling is that Jesus is God. Honest feeling. I feel that Jesus is God. And I said, that's not a feeling, that's an opinion. And people have strong feelings attached to their opinions. And they conflate the feeling they're having about their opinion, which is if you believe in Jesus and somebody comes along and tells you that Jesus never existed, you're going to be threatened by that. And a lot of feelings are going to come up. So him saying, I think Jesus is God and you should just read the Bible, that's not a feeling, that's an opinion. If he had said, you telling me Jesus doesn't exist frightens me and angers me, I would have applauded him for sharing his feeling. Because sharing a feeling doesn't have a conclusion. Saying I feel that Jesus is God has a conclusion to it. You're now closed. So having an opinion is a good thing, but it solidifies and closes you off. And if you want to learn and grow, if you're here on my channel because you trust me as a teacher, then go ahead and keep your mind open. Questions do that. Feelings do that. When you're working with the higher dimensional beings, keep your mind open because they're going to bust your mind wide open. So do you understand? This is what I'm teaching you to do. I'm teaching you with me how to stay in a space where your mind can continue to open. Once you're out of meditation, you can come up with opinions. When you're not listening to me, you can come up with opinions. Feel free to do that. It's only normal and natural. But if you want to get the most out of working with me, keep your opinions at the door. Bring your feelings and your questions, because then I can find ways to best help you. It doesn't help you if I co-sign your opinion and you put it in the, question. Question, do you think blah, 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 blah? You're just trying to get me to co-sign your opinion. It doesn't help you. Even if you're right, doesn't help you. Oscar, question. So again, Oscar, you're putting words in my mouth. It's not a question. If you believed there was a way to physical immortality, would you pursue this truth? Once you start a question with if this, then you're shoving an assumption down my throat, a hypothetical. You didn't even, you know what I mean? This is obviously you. You want to pursue physical immortality. That's a feeling. It's not a question. Again, Bao Gaming, you're doing the same thing. You're shoving an opinion down my throat. Will we go back to old Earth after the event where everyone were giants? When have I ever said that people were giants? Why are you trying to force that into my vocabulary? It's not a question. It's okay with me if you believe that we were all giants before. Go right ahead. I've never once talked about that. Anyway, okay. So I don't see any questions here. I don't see any. Anyway, so the bottom line is, here's my suggestion to you. Get out of your head. Stop with all of the thinking, because thinking and opinions and all of that intellectualization is actually you running away from your feelings. Because having all of these thoughts and these opinions gives you comfort, because all these feelings are bubbling up. Instead, do the work. Do the practices. Remember what I've been saying. 5D Earth is not a location. It is a frequency. The way you shift the frequency is by taking specific actions. When you take specific actions, these are the things I'm teaching you. Your frequency will shift. Now your feelings will go all over the place. And this is why you need to have somebody to talk to. This is why you need a mentor. This is why you need a guide, a guru, a teacher, a coach. You need to have somebody to talk to, because your feelings are going to go all over the place. Your impulses are going to try and pull you back into the frequency of the third dimension. So it's good to know what the actions are, and I've already told you what they are. Go to the 3 playlists, and once you've felt it, then get serious and subscribe to the 90-day challenge, and or work with me directly. All right, that's it. I think we're all done. Nothing else to talk about. So thank you all for showing up. Once again, as always, my job is to tell you the truth as best I know it, to teach you what I've learned through what I've done, through my experience. And if I've done or said anything that has offended you or angered you or hurt your feelings, I regret that you've had those feelings, but I don't regret telling you the truth as I understand it. And know that, again, I love you so much that I don't need you to accept me. I'm not instrumentalizing you so that you make me feel good. You like me, you don't like me. If you can hate let me put it to you this way. You can hate me as much as you want if you do the practice. In fact, I've done that with my teachers. There have been teachers that had practices that I want to learn, and I didn't like the way they did things. I didn't like the way they treated me. But I asked myself, is there something I can learn from them? Yes. So I'd stick with them so I could learn the techniques, so that I could do the practices so that I would evolve. If you want to do that with me, that's fine. You don't like me, you won't hurt my feelings. Do the practices. I guarantee you, if you do the practices, you will shift. You may have some emotional things come up, and then you're going to need to talk to somebody. I'm not the only game in town. You can talk to whomever you want if you trust them, but you can't do this thing alone. All right, that's it. I'm all done. I love you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for all of those of you who are doing the work, and thank you to those of you who will be doing the work. And just know that whenever you do anything that helps you to evolve, you help me. If you want to give back to me, do the practices. You not only help me, you help all other conscious beings. Shiva himself, sitting on top of Mount Kailash, when you do the practices that shift you up and help you to evolve, he becomes more empowered and he appreciates what you do. So you help every conscious being every time that you do the work or the difficult things to help you move beyond your limitations. That's all for me. I love you all. If the flash don't come and or if I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, I will see you guys all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.